Stay up to date with your ABC local radio station.
ABC North West Queensland.
If you've ever had to leave town to study, you would know it's not just the course, it's the cost of actually getting out there, doing the placement. In fact, for a lot of students, health students in particular, that's the part that can kind of make or break whether they consider working in the regions at all. There's a program trying to change that, though, offering bursaries to support students taking on rural places in North Queensland, mainly places like Cairns, the Cape, although it does include Richmond, Hughenden as well, also Townsville. So, yeah, more north, encouraging them to take on a short-term stint, giving them a bit of money to make it a little bit easier. Now, Erin Weekes is a fully qualified occupational therapist that now works here in the Northwest, but was one of the students who took up that bursary, who went on those placements. Erin, can you tell me more about where you went?
So I went on a 9-week placement to Weipa in Cape York. I was at the school, Western Cape College, with a supervisor who was only there for 2 days a week. So I practiced with a lot of autonomy. I had to kind of make my own caseload, developed a lot of independence, which was really good. And I worked alongside the hospital as well. And I did a few outreach opportunities there as well. So I went to Mapoon and Napranum, which were awesome. So visited some smaller schools. I think there was about maybe 10 kids in the class in Napranum. So it was quite small. And then, yeah, I absolutely loved it.
Was the placement a requirement of your studies?
At ACU, so where I went in Brizzy, we did have to do a rural placement, but that was recommended in my third year of practice. So I did a rural placement in St. George in my third year for 5 weeks, and I loved that so much that I said, you know what, I want to do that again, but in my fourth year. So I actually requested to go rural, which for someone in Brisbane, I think that wasn't a very common thing.
Where'd that come from for you?
I think it was definitely my first rural experience. I got a taste of, you know, small communities, connections, all the independence that I fostered and the life skills and transferable skills as practicing as an OT student. I think it was very different compared to my metro placements, and I just absolutely loved it. And I said, I want to get more out of placement, and I can get that in another rural setting. So I requested to go somewhere very far away, and they said, okay, and we'll put you to the tip of Australia. And I said, perfect. So, yeah.
How did this bursary help make this process possible for you?
As a student, it's an unpaid placement, and for 9 weeks of no income is quite a lot. I think as a uni student, this bursary really enabled me to relieve the pressures that also come with being on placement, but it enabled me to not think about, I guess, those stresses as much and really just focus on my placement. So I was able to get reimbursed for my flights, and I had accommodation set up. And I think as students on placement, that's such a big stressor for everyone, is that, you know, you're not working for 9 to 10 weeks. You know, you've got to think about food, travel, accommodation, all that stuff like that. And
your bills back home.
Yeah, and your bills back home. And Health Workforce Queensland really just supports you as a student. They really value, you know, how you're going, your journey, and they want to be there to support you. So the bursary really helps with that, and it just relieves all of those stresses that come with being on placement as well.
How much does the cost of placement influence students' choices about what they do based on people you've spoken with?
It actually influences it quite heavily. You know, going to a university in Brisbane, I guess rural placements were actually considered like going to the Gold Coast. Like if you were going to the Gold Coast, that was a rural placement. And I think not everyone likes to take the leap and go out of their comfort zone. And there's a lot of unknowns and moving parts of, you know, going rural. And I think the added stress of cost and, you know, everyday living, that just kind of puts another factor or barrier in terms of students coming out rurally. So I think for our uni, most of our placements that were rural were like Toowoomba, Gold Coast, we had like St. George, some of the southwest region as well, but they don't always go that far up north. And definitely as a fourth year student, it's not quite common for people to move, like to go on a rural placement at my uni. I know other unis work differently, but for our uni, and I think for my cohort and the people I was speaking to, cost is definitely a factor.
So you went to St George, then you went to the Cape, and now you're qualified and working in Mount Isa. Is it safe to say going rural on placement impacted your career?
Definitely. I think if you told me in my first year at uni that I would be working and living in Mount Isa, I probably would have laughed. It just wouldn't have been on the cards, I'd thought. But I think these experiences are so valuable. And for me, Weeper was just such a turning point. The kind of experience where I thought, you know what, this isn't just a placement, it's the lifestyle that I want. And I saw how needed, how many like healthcare gaps there were in the communities and what OT can do to support that, and what a difference you can make out rural as opposed to in metro areas, because I think the value of healthcare out here is just so much more valuable because these people don't always have access to these services, whereas in metro placements, you know, allied health or healthcare in general is a bit more accessible because there's a lot more healthcare providers. But out here, it's a little bit trickier. I see how much the work is valued, and I feel like I make such a big difference. If it wasn't for those placement experiences and going rural, I probably wouldn't be here today. You know, I was born and raised in the city, and, you know, now I'm out here working and living in the outback, and I absolutely love it.
What a lovely story. That's Erin Weekes, who went on a placement in the Cape thanks to a Go Rural North rural bursary, and because of that decided to work remotely. Now based in Mount Isa, but travelling all about the region as a qualified occupational therapist with Northwest Remote Health.